Rescued bear. Thinks he's human. You won't believe what he does with human baby on the couch. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The snowflakes danced outside the cabin window, painting the forest white as the evening settled in. Inside, Olivia Morgan rocked her 6-month-old daughter Lily near the crackling fireplace. The soft glow of the flames cast dancing shadows across the worn wooden floors where Bruno, their rescued bear cub, lounged contentedly. Bruno wasn't an ordinary bear. Found abandoned and severely injured in the woods 3 months ago, he'd been nursed back to health by Olivia and her husband Noah, a wildlife veterinarian working remotely in these mountains. "Noah, did you see that?" Olivia whispered, her eyes widening as Bruno lifted his head, watching Lily with unusual intensity. The bear cub, now healthy and growing rapidly, had begun mimicking human behaviors around the cabin, sitting upright at the dinner table, attempting to use objects with his paws, and even trying to communicate through soft grunts that almost sounded like words. Noah looked up from his research papers spread across the dining table. "See what?" His voice held a note of concern as he adjusted his glasses, the firelight reflecting off the lenses. He'd been studying Bruno's behavior for weeks, documenting every surprising development in the young bear's adaptation to human life. Bruno, he's watching Lily again. That look in his eyes, it's almost like he's trying to understand her. Olivia's voice trembled slightly. She loved Bruno dearly, but couldn't shake the occasional reminder that he was, after all, a wild animal. Yet there was something different about him, something that defied natural explanation. The cabin creaked under the weight of the accumulating snow outside. Their nearest neighbor was miles away, and the forest road would soon become impassable. They were truly isolated out here, just a family, their baby, and a bear cub who seemed to be forgetting his own nature with each passing day. Lily began to fuss, her tiny hands reaching upward as her face scrunched in discomfort. Olivia gently placed her on the soft couch, surrounded by cushions, while she went to prepare a bottle. "Noah, can you watch her for a minute?" Noah nodded absently, his attention returning to his notes as he scribbled another observation. Bruno displayed increased interest in human speech today, tilting his head during conversation as if attempting to discern meaning. He murmured as he wrote. That moment of distraction was all it took. Bruno rose from his spot by the fire, his eyes never leaving little Lily. With surprising grace for his bulky frame, he padded across the room, his claws clicking softly against the wooden floor. Before either parent realized what was happening, Bruno had hoisted himself onto the couch beside the squirming baby. "Noah!" Olivia gasped from the kitchen doorway, the bottle slipping from her fingers and clattering to the floor. She froze, terrified of startling Bruno into doing something unpredictable. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure it would wake the forest creatures hibernating outside. Noah slowly rose from his chair, his body tense but his movements deliberately calm. "Don't move," he whispered. "Just wait." What happened next would change everything they thought they knew about Bruno, about bears, and about the boundaries between humans and animals. Bruno's large paw, capable of shattering bone with a single swipe, reached toward tiny Lily. The room fell silent except for the crackling fire and the howling wind outside. Time seemed to stop as both parents held their breath, caught in that terrible moment between action and consequence. But instead of danger, they witnessed something extraordinary. With the gentlest touch imaginable, Bruno's paw softly stroked Lily's cheek, wiping away a tear that had begun to roll down her tiny face. The baby, surprisingly, didn't cry. Instead, she looked up at the bear with wide, curious eyes that reflected the dancing flames. Bruno made a soft rumbling sound deep in his throat, almost like a purr, and his eyes, intelligent and warm, never left Lily's face. "Noah," Olivia whispered, her voice barely audible. "What is happening?" Before Noah could answer, Bruno did something even more astonishing. He carefully adjusted the small blanket that had twisted around Lily's legs, tugging it free with his teeth, and then using his paw to spread it evenly over her tiny body. The movements were deliberate, careful, almost human. Lily cooed, a sound of contentment that seemed to please Bruno. The bear cub settled his considerable weight beside her, creating a protective half-circle around the baby's small form. Noah took a cautious step forward, his scientific mind racing to explain what his eyes were witnessing. It's like he's trying to care for her," he whispered. "I've never seen anything like this in any research. Never." Olivia's maternal instinct told her to rush forward and snatch her baby away from the wild animal. But something deeper, something she couldn't explain, held her back. There was no aggression in Bruno's posture, no danger in his eyes. If anything, he looked protective. "Do you think he sees her as a cub?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling. "Is he trying to parent her?" Noah shook his head slowly, his eyes never leaving the pair on the couch. "I don't think so. Bears don't typically care for cubs that aren't their own. This is something different. It's almost like he's modeling his behavior after what he's seen us do." As if to confirm Noah's theory, Bruno reached for one of Lily's toys, a small stuffed elephant, and placed it gently beside her hand. When Lily didn't immediately reach for it, Bruno nudged it closer, making that same rumbling sound. A sharp knock at the cabin door shattered the moment. Bruno, startled, looking toward the sound but, remarkably, not moving away from Lily. Instead, he shifted his body slightly, positioning himself between the baby and the door. His ears flattened against his head, not in aggression but in what appeared to be concern. Outside, a voice called through the howling wind, "Morgan, family." "Park ranger. We got reports of a bear in the area. Just checking that everything's all right." Noah and Olivia exchanged panicked glances. The ranger couldn't find Bruno here. They had no permits, no legal right to keep a wild bear, even an orphaned cub. The research Noah had been conducting would be considered unauthorized and potentially dangerous. They could lose everything, including Bruno. "Hide him in the back room," Olivia whispered urgently, already moving toward the couch. But before she could reach them, Bruno did something that made her stop in her tracks. He carefully scooped Lily into his forelegs, cradling her against his chest with astonishing gentleness. The baby giggled, clearly comfortable in the bear's embrace. Bruno then carefully climbed down from the couch and padded toward the hallway leading to the bedrooms, carrying Lily as carefully as any human parent would. "Bruno, no!" Noah hissed, but it was too late. The bear disappeared down the hall with their baby, his movements deliberate and careful. The knocking grew more insistent. "Hello? Anyone home? It's Ranger Parker." Noah ran his hands through his hair, his mind racing. "I'll deal with the ranger. You get Lily and Bruno into our bedroom and keep them quiet. I'll try to get rid of him as quickly as possible." Olivia nodded, already moving toward the hallway. Her heart hammered in her chest as she followed Bruno's path. What if the bear's behavior suddenly changed? What if the instinct to protect Lily turned into something else? She found them in the nursery, a small room they'd painted soft yellow before Lily was born. Bruno had placed the baby in her crib, actually placed her there, not dropped or pushed her, and was now sitting beside it, his dark eyes alert and watchful. When Olivia appeared in the doorway, he made that rumbling sound again, as if explaining his actions. "Bruno," she whispered, approaching slowly. "How did you know to—" She couldn't finish the question. It made no sense. Bears don't put babies to bed. They don't understand cribs or the concept of safety. Yet Bruno had done exactly what she or Noah would have done. Removed Lily from a potentially unsafe situation and placed her in her bed. From the front of the cabin, she could hear Noah greeting the ranger, his voice overly cheerful, strained with tension. "Ranger Parker, what brings you out in this storm?" Olivia carefully lifted Lily from the crib, relieved to find her unharmed and actually smiling. "Come on," she whispered to Bruno. "We need to hide in the bedroom until the ranger leaves." To her amazement, Bruno followed her command, padding after her to the master bedroom across the hall. Once inside, Olivia closed the door quietly and sat on the edge of the bed, cradling Lily close. "What are you?" she whispered to Bruno, who had settled himself on the floor nearby, his eyes never leaving them. "What are you really?" In the living room, Noah was trying to appear casual as Ranger Parker stamped snow from his boots. Parker was a large man with a weathered face and sharp eyes that missed little. He'd been patrolling these mountains for over 20 years and knew every person, every cabin, and, supposedly, every wild animal in his territory. "Sorry to bother you folks on such a nasty night," Parker said, glancing around the cabin with professional curiosity. "Got a report from a hiker who swears they saw a bear cub hanging around this area. Said it didn't seem afraid of humans, which is concerning." Noah forced a laugh. "A bear? In this weather? Shouldn't they all be hibernating by now?" Parker's eyes narrowed slightly. "Most are. But young cubs, especially orphaned ones, sometimes get their cycles disrupted. When that happens, they get desperate for food and start approaching human habitations. Very dangerous situation." "Well, we haven't seen anything like that," Noah said, trying to sound confident despite the sweat beading on his forehead. "Just been holed up here with the baby, waiting out the storm." Parker nodded slowly, but his gaze had fixed on something near the fireplace. Noah followed his eyes and felt his stomach drop. Bruno's bed, a large cushion they'd bought specially, lay near the fire, and beside it were several toys they'd given him to play with. Worst of all, a large paw print was clearly visible in a patch of ash that had escaped from the fireplace. "That's, for our dog," Noah said quickly. "He's in the back with my wife and the baby right now." "Pretty big dog," Parker remarked, moving closer to examine the paw print. "What breed?" Noah's mind raced. Newfoundland mix, massive animals. Parker crouched down and touched the edge of the paw print, his expression unreadable. Funny-looking paw for a Newfoundland, almost looks like... A crash from the bedroom interrupted him. Both men froze, listening. Then came a sound that couldn't possibly be mistaken for a dog. A low, rumbling growl followed by what was unmistakably a bear's huffing sound. Parker straightened, his hand automatically moving to the tranquilizer gun at his hip. "Dr. Morgan," he said, his voice suddenly official, "I think you'd better explain what's going on here." Before Noah could answer, the bedroom door creaked open. Olivia appeared, her face pale but determined, still holding Lily. And right behind her, his head lowered but his eyes alert, came Bruno. "I can explain," Olivia said quickly, as Parker drew his tranquilizer gun. "Please, don't hurt him. He's not dangerous." Parker stared in disbelief, his finger on the trigger but hesitating at the sight of the bear cub walking calmly beside the woman and her baby. "Ma'am, step away from that animal right now." "I can't do that," Olivia replied, her voice steady despite her fear. "He's part of our family." Noah moved to stand beside his wife, creating a human barrier between Bruno and the ranger. "We found him 3 months ago. His mother had been killed by poachers. He was badly injured, starving. We couldn't just leave him to die." "So, you brought a wild bear into your home? With your infant child?" Parker's voice was incredulous. "Do you have any idea how many regulations you're violating? Not to mention putting your baby in extreme danger." "We know how it looks," Noah admitted. "But Bruno isn't like other bears. He's different. He thinks he's human," Olivia finished. "He behaves more like a person than an animal. He's gentle with Lily, protective even. What you just heard was him knocking over a lamp because he was trying to close the bedroom curtains. He does things like that, human things." Parker's expression made it clear he thought they were either lying or delusional. "Step aside, Doctor. Morgan, that animal needs to be relocated to a proper wildlife facility." "Please," Noah pleaded. "Let me show you my research. I've been documenting everything. Bruno represents a scientific breakthrough in understanding bear cognition and behavior. He's displaying levels of intelligence and emotional development that have never been recorded in his species." Parker hesitated, his eyes moving from the bear to the baby and back again. "That may be so, Doctor, but it doesn't change the law. You cannot keep a wild bear as a pet, especially not in a home with an infant." "He's not a pet," Olivia insisted. "He's—" Her words were cut off as Bruno suddenly moved forward, sliding past her legs to stand directly in front of Parker. The ranger raised his gun instinctively but froze when Bruno sat back on his haunches and extended a paw toward him, almost as if offering a handshake. The cabin fell silent. Even little Lily seemed to sense the importance of the moment, her usual babbling quieted as she watched with wide eyes. Parker stared at the extended paw, his weathered face a mask of conflicting emotions. Suspicion, wonder, professional duty, and scientific curiosity battling for dominance. "This is what he does," Noah said softly. "He observes human behavior and mimics it. He's seen us greet visitors with handshakes. Now he's doing the same." Parker slowly lowered his gun, his eyes never leaving Bruno. "In 23 years on this job, I've never seen anything like this." "None of us have," Olivia agreed. "That's why we need more time with him. Time to understand what's happening here." The ranger took a step back, holstering his weapon. His face had lost some of its hardness, replaced by an expression of genuine bewilderment. "Even if what you're saying is true, even if this bear is some kind of miraculous exception, I can't just walk away and pretend I didn't see this. There are protocols, rules." Noah nodded, relief washing over him that at least the immediate danger of Bruno being tranquilized had passed. "We understand. We just ask that you hear us out completely before making any decisions." Parker glanced at his watch, then at the window where the storm was intensifying. "Looks like I couldn't make it back down the mountain tonight anyway." He sighed heavily. "All right, Dr. Morgan. You've got until morning to convince me that keeping a wild bear with your infant daughter isn't the most reckless thing I've ever encountered in these mountains." As if understanding the reprieve they'd been granted, Bruno lowered his paw and returned to Olivia's side, looking up at Lily with what could only be described as affection. The baby reached down, her tiny fingers grasping at his fur, and let out a delighted giggle. Parker shook his head in disbelief. "I'd better get a damn good explanation for this, and a very strong cup of coffee." What none of them noticed in that moment was the small red light blinking in the corner of the room. Noah's research camera, automatically recording everything. And none of them could have predicted how that footage would soon change not just their lives, but the world's understanding of animal cognition forever. While Noah prepared coffee in the kitchen, Olivia settled on the couch with Lily still in her arms. Bruno immediately took his place beside them, his large body creating a protective barrier between them and Ranger Parker, who sat in the armchair opposite, his posture rigid with professional caution. "Start from the beginning," Parker said, his voice gruff, but not unkind. "How did you find him?" Noah returned with mugs of steaming coffee, handing one to Parker before sitting beside his family. "It was during that big storm in October," he began, his eyes distant with the memory. "I was checking on some trail cameras I'd set up for my research when I heard this sound, this terrible, pitiful crying. It wasn't like any bear sound I'd ever heard," Olivia added softly. "It was almost human, this desperate wailing." Noah nodded. "I followed it to a clearing about 2 miles east of here. There was a female bear, dead. Poachers had taken her paws and gallbladder." His voice hardened with anger. "Bruno was huddled against her body, covered in blood, some of it his own. He had a deep gash across his shoulder and was severely malnourished. He didn't run when he saw me," Noah continued. "He just looked at me. Those eyes." He glanced at Bruno, who was watching him intently, as if understanding he was the subject of the conversation. "It was like he was asking for help." Parker frowned. Bear cubs typically flee from humans, especially after a traumatic event like losing their mother. "That's what was so unusual," Noah agreed. "He showed no fear, just this intelligence. I knew I couldn't leave him there. He would have died, and I couldn't let that happen." "So, you brought him home," Parker stated flatly, despite knowing it was illegal. Olivia shifted Lily to her other arm. The baby was beginning to doze, one tiny hand still clutching a strand of Bruno's fur. "We intended to call wildlife services once he was stabilized. But then he started showing these behaviors, these human-like responses. Noah recognized it could be significant research, so we delayed." "And then what?" Parker prompted when she fell silent. "Then he became part of our family," she said simply. "He bonded with us, with Lily. The way he interacts with her, it's not normal bear behavior, it's something else entirely." Parker looked skeptical but less hostile than before. "Doctor? Morgan, I understand your scientific interest, but a wild predator and an infant. He's never shown a single aggressive behavior toward Lily," Noah interrupted firmly. "Not once. In fact, he's protective of her in ways that defy explanation." He reached for his laptop on the coffee table. "Let me show you some of the footage I've collected." As Noah opened his research files, Bruno suddenly perked up, his attention drawn to Lily, who had begun to squirm and fuss in her sleep. Before anyone could react, the bear cub leaned forward and very gently nuzzled the baby's cheek. Lily immediately settled, sighing contentedly. Parker watched, his coffee forgotten in his hand. "How old is he?" he finally asked. "About 10 months, we think," Noah replied, typing on his laptop. "Still very young. In the wild, he'd still be with his mother, learning survival skills. Instead, he's learning from you," Parker murmured, his eyes still on Bruno. "Learning to be human." "Exactly," Noah said eagerly. "That's what makes this case so extraordinary. He's at a critical developmental stage where his brain is forming permanent neural pathways, but instead of learning bear behaviors, he's mapping human ones. The implications for understanding cross-species cognition are enormous." The ranger set down his mug and leaned forward. "Show me what you've got." Noah turned the screen toward Parker. The first video showed Bruno from about a month ago, attempting to use a spoon at the dinner table. His paws were too clumsy for the utensil, but his determination was clear as he watched Noah and Olivia eat, then tried to mimic them. "This isn't just mimicry," Noah explained. "It's conceptual understanding." He grasps that the spoon is a tool for transferring food to mouth. That's abstract thinking. The next video showed Bruno carefully bringing Olivia a diaper when she called for one while changing Lily. "He's connecting the word with the object," Noah pointed out. "Rudimentary language comprehension." Video after video showed Bruno's remarkable behaviors, stacking blocks with Lily, retrieving specific toys when named, even attempting to turn pages of a picture book while Olivia read to the baby. Parker watched in silence, his expression shifting from skepticism to wonder. "I've worked with wildlife for over 2 decades, he finally said. "I've never seen anything like this." "We know," Olivia said quietly. "That's why we couldn't just turn him over to a wildlife sanctuary. He's unique, special." A heavy silence fell over the cabin as Parker processed what he'd seen. Outside, the storm howled with increasing intensity, rattling the windows and sending drafts of cold air through the small gaps in the cabin's walls. Bruno, seemingly sensitive to the dropping temperature, moved closer to Lily, his furry body providing additional warmth. Parker noticed the movement and frowned again. "Even if what you're showing me is genuine, and I'm not completely convinced it is, keeping him here isn't sustainable. He's already, 60 pounds? In another year, he'll be 200. Black bears can live 30 years. Have you thought about that?" Noah and Olivia exchanged glances. It was clear from their expressions that they had indeed thought about it, and worried about it. "We know this isn't a permanent solution," Noah admitted, "but we need more time for research. If we can document Bruno's development properly, it could revolutionize how we understand animal intelligence, maybe even change how we approach wildlife conservation." Parker ran a hand over his face, looking suddenly tired. "It's not just about the research, though, is it? You two have bonded with him. You see him as family." "Yes," Olivia said simply, not bothering to deny it. "We do." As if to emphasize her point, Bruno chose that moment to reach out and very deliberately stroke Lily's cheek with his paw again, making that same rumbling sound in his throat. The gesture was so tender, so manifestly affectionate, that even Parker couldn't hide his amazement. "Does he do that often?" the ranger asked quietly. "Every day," Noah replied. "He comforts her when she cries. He brings her toys when she's bored. Sometimes he just sits with her, watching over her like a brother would." Parker shook his head again, clearly struggling with what he was witnessing versus what his training and experience told him. "Even if I believed everything you're telling me, and I'm not saying I do, there are still laws, protocols. I can't just—" A sudden, explosive crack from outside cut him off. The lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely, plunging the cabin into darkness except for the orange glow from the fireplace. "Power line must have gone down in the storm," Noah said, already rising to find flashlights. Bruno let out a soft huff of concern and pressed closer to Olivia and Lily. "We've got candles and an emergency generator," Olivia assured Parker, who had tensed at the sudden darkness. "Noah will get it running." But Noah, who had moved to the window, let out a sharp breath. "I don't think the generator's going to help us much." His voice was tight with sudden fear. "Look." They all turned to where he was pointing. Through the window, barely visible through the swirling snow, an ominous orange glow lit up the night sky. Fire. And from the direction it was clear it was coming from the only road that led down the mountain. "That's not good," Parker said, his voice shifting to professional urgency as he joined Noah at the window. "Looks like it might be a transformer explosion. If it caught the trees, that whole slope could go up fast." "How fast?" Olivia asked, clutching Lily closer. Parker's expression was grim in the firelight. "With this wind, we might have less than an hour before it reaches us." Noah quickly moved to the cabin's landline phone, but the receiver was dead in his hand. "Lines are down too, no cell service up here either." "My radio's in the truck," Parker said, already reaching for his coat. "I'll call for emergency evacuation." "In this storm?" Noah shook his head. No helicopter could fly in these conditions. The ranger paused, his hand on the doorknob. "You got a better idea, Doctor?" "Because we've got a forest fire moving uphill toward us in high winds. We need to get out of here, fast." The gravity of the situation hung in the air between them. Their remote location, usually a blessing for Noah's research, had suddenly become a potentially deadly trap. The only road down the mountain was now blocked by fire. The storm made air evacuation impossible, and they had less than an hour to figure out what to do. Bruno, sensing the tension in the room, rose from his place beside Olivia and padded to the window. He placed his paws on the sill, looking out at the distant flames just as the humans had done. His ears flattened against his head, and he made a low, mournful sound that raised goosebumps on everyone's arms. "He understands," Olivia whispered. "He knows we're in danger." Parker didn't contradict her this time. Instead, he pulled open the door, letting in a blast of icy wind and snow. "I'll check the radio, but we need to start preparing. Grab only what's essential: warm clothes, water, whatever food you can carry easily." "What about Bruno?" Noah asked, the question hanging heavy in the air between them. The ranger hesitated, conflict clear on his face. In normal circumstances, he would never allow the bear to be transported with humans. But these weren't normal circumstances, and Bruno was clearly no ordinary bear. "He comes with us," Parker finally said. "Whatever he is, we're not leaving him to burn." As Parker disappeared into the storm, Noah and Olivia looked at each other in the dim firelight, the reality of their situation sinking in. They might soon lose everything: their home, Noah's research, perhaps even their lives. But in this moment of crisis, one thing had unexpectedly been resolved. Bruno had gained an unlikely ally in Ranger Parker. What none of them realized was that their ordeal was just beginning, and that before the night was over, Bruno would do something that would erase any remaining doubt about his extraordinary nature. Something that would save them all. Noah moved quickly, gathering essential supplies. He stuffed a backpack with bottles of water, energy bars, and a first aid kit while Olivia dressed Lily in her warmest clothes, layering tiny sweaters and securing a thick hat over her downy hair. Bruno watched their frantic preparations with intelligent eyes, occasionally making low huffing sounds as if offering encouragement. "We need to find another way down the mountain," Noah said, zipping up the backpack. "The main road is blocked, but there must be another route." Olivia nodded, securing Lily in a baby carrier against her chest. "What about the old logging trail on the east side? The one you used to check your research cameras?" "It's steep and narrow," Noah said, frowning. "Not maintained, probably buried under snow right now." "But it leads down to the valley, doesn't it?" Olivia pressed. "Away from the fire?" Before Noah could answer, the door burst open again. Parker stumbled in, covered in snow, his face grim. "Radio's dead. Battery must have frozen." He slammed the door against the howling wind. "And the fire's moving faster than I thought. We have maybe 30 minutes, not an hour." A heavy silence fell over the cabin as the implications sank in. They were trapped on a mountain with a forest fire approaching rapidly. no communications and no clear escape route. And they had a baby and a bear cub to protect. The logging trail, Noah said suddenly. It's our only chance. It winds down the eastern slope, away from the fire. It's rough terrain, but it eventually connects with the highway about 5 miles downstream. Parker looked skeptical. In this storm, at night? It would be treacherous even in daylight with clear conditions. Do we have a choice? Noah challenged. The ranger's silence was answer enough. We'll need light, Olivia said, already moving to gather the flashlights. And rope, in case we need to help each other down steep sections. As they hastily assembled their emergency gear, Bruno suddenly became agitated. He paced the cabin, making distressed sounds and repeatedly moving to the window facing east, away from the fire, but toward something else that seemed to concern him. What's wrong with him? Parker asked, watching the bear's unusual behavior. I don't know, Noah admitted. He seems upset about something, but it's not the fire. He keeps looking east. Olivia joined Bruno at the window, but could see nothing through the swirling snow and darkness. Maybe he senses something we don't. Bears have incredible instincts, Noah agreed. Their sense of smell is 7 times more powerful than a bloodhound's. They can detect scents from miles away. Parker checked his watch. Whatever it is, we don't have time to figure it out. We need to move now. They bundled up in their warmest clothes, secured their emergency packs, and took one last look at the cabin that had been their home. The fire was now clearly visible through the trees to the west, an angry orange glow consuming everything in its path and sending plumes of black smoke into the night sky. Ready? Noah asked, his hand on the door. Olivia nodded, one hand protectively covering Lily's bundled form against her chest. Bruno positioned himself at her side, as if understanding his role as protector. They stepped out into the storm, the bitter cold instantly stinging their exposed skin. The wind howled around them, driving snow into their faces and making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. Noah led the way, using a powerful flashlight to illuminate the path toward the logging trail. Parker took the rear position, occasionally glancing back at the approaching fire. Bruno, however, seemed distracted. He kept turning his head toward the east, making those same distressed sounds they'd heard in the cabin. Twice he stopped completely, standing on his hind legs to better scan the darkness, before Olivia gently urged him forward. What do you think he's sensing? She asked Noah, raising her voice to be heard over the wind. I don't know, he replied, his brow furrowed with concern. But I trust his instincts more than I trust our human perception right now. They had gone about half a mile, fighting through knee-deep snow and whipping winds, when they reached the start of the logging trail. It was barely visible, just a slightly less dense section of trees winding down the steep eastern slope of the mountain. This is it, Noah announced, shining his light down the precarious path. Watch your footing. It's going to be icy and treacherous. Parker surveyed the trail with professional concern. Single file. I'll go first. Test the stability. Dr. Morgan, you follow, then your wife and the baby, with the bear behind you. Step exactly where I step. They had just begun their careful descent when Bruno suddenly froze, his entire body rigid with attention. He let out a low growl, not threatening, but alerting, and then did something none of them expected. He darted off the trail, plunging into the deep snow and heading east, away from their planned route. Bruno! Olivia called after him, panic rising in her voice. Come back! But the bear was already disappearing into the darkness, his dark fur blending with the night. We have to follow him, Noah said, already turning to pursue. That's insane, Parker objected, We can't leave the trail. We'll get lost and freeze to death before the fire ever reaches us." "You don't understand," Noah insisted. "Bruno wouldn't leave without a reason. He's trying to tell us something." The ranger looked incredulous. "He's a bear, Doctor. Wild animals flee from fire. It's instinct, not communication." "He's right, Noah," Olivia said reluctantly, clutching Lily closer as the baby began to fuss in the cold. "We can't risk getting lost out here. The trail is our only safe route." Noah looked torn, his eyes darting between the vanishing form of Bruno and his family. Then, in the distance, they all heard it. A faint sound carried on the wind. Not the crackling of fire or the howling of the storm, but something else. Something human. "Is that a voice?" Parker asked, his professional training immediately kicking in. They stood in silence, straining to hear. There it was again, faint but unmistakable. A human cry for help, coming from the direction Bruno had disappeared. "There's someone out there," Noah said, his voice tight with urgency. "That's what Bruno sensed. That's why he's been acting strange since the cabin." Parker's entire demeanor changed instantly. "How many cabins are on this side of the mountain?" "Just one," Olivia answered. "The Richardsons. They're usually only here in summer, but—" "We have to check," Parker said, already changing course to follow Bruno's tracks. "If there's anyone out there, they won't survive the night in this storm, let alone with the fire coming." They abandoned the logging trail and followed Bruno's tracks through the deep snow, moving as quickly as they dared with Lily in tow. The wind had picked up, making it harder to hear the cries, but they pressed on, trusting Bruno's instincts more than their own. After what seemed like an eternity of struggling through the snow, they spotted a faint light ahead. Not the orange glow of the fire, but the yellow beam of a flashlight waving frantically in the darkness. "Hello," Parker called out, using his park ranger voice that carried even over the wind. "Forest Service. We're coming to help." As they drew closer, they could make out a small structure. Not the Richardson cabin, but a small storage shed about half a mile from where the main property should be. Bruno was already there, pawing frantically at the door, which appeared to be jammed shut by snow and ice. "Hello, is someone in there?" Parker called out, shining his flashlight toward the shed. "Help, please help us." A woman's voice, trembling with cold and fear, answered from inside. "The door's frozen shut. We can't get out." Noah and Parker immediately moved to the door, brushing away the accumulated snow and revealing a sturdy wooden structure with a heavy padlock. "Who's in there?" Parker demanded, his ranger training taking over. "Amanda Richardson," came the reply. "And my son, Tyler. He's only 4. We got caught in the storm trying to check on our cabin. The shed was the only shelter we could find, but the wind slammed the door shut and we can't budge it. Please hurry. Tyler's getting so cold." Parker examined the door, his expression grim. "It's padlocked from the outside and frozen solid. We need something to break it open." Noah scanned their surroundings with his flashlight, looking for anything they could use as a tool. "There's nothing here, just snow and trees." Bruno, who had been watching intently, suddenly moved between them. With a determined huff, he rose onto his hind legs, his full weight now impressive despite his young age. Before anyone could stop him, he brought his front paws down on the padlock with tremendous force. The metal groaned, but held. "Bruno, careful," Olivia warned, stepping back with Lily. The bear cub seemed to understand the urgency of the situation. He positioned himself again, this time backing up slightly to gain momentum. With a powerful lunge, he slammed his body against the door, focusing his weight on the lock. There was a sharp crack as the frozen metal shattered under the impact, pieces of the lock falling into the snow. Parker stared in amazement. Did he just— Yes, Noah confirmed, already pulling the broken pieces away and tugging the door open. He knew exactly what he was doing. Inside the shed, huddled against the far wall on a pile of old burlap sacks, were Amanda Richardson and her young son. The woman looked to be in her early 30s, her face pale with cold, but her arms wrapped protectively around the small boy curled against her chest. Her eyes widened in shock as she saw not only her rescuers, but the bear cub standing alertly beside them. "It's okay," Noah said quickly, seeing her fear. "Bruno is with us. He's the one who found you." Parker moved forward, his ranger training taking over as he assessed their condition. "Ma'am, are you or your son injured?" Amanda shook her head, her teeth chattering. No, just cold, very cold. Tyler fell asleep about an hour ago and I couldn't wake him." Olivia's heart clenched with fear. A sleeping child who couldn't be roused in these temperatures likely meant the early stages of hypothermia. "We need to warm him up right away," she said, stepping into the shed. To everyone's surprise, Bruno pushed past her gently and padded directly to the boy. Amanda gasped, pulling her son closer, but Noah held up a reassuring hand. "It's all right. Please, trust us. Bruno won't hurt him." The bear cub approached the child with extraordinary gentleness. He sniffed the boy's face, making a soft whining sound, then did something remarkable. He lay down next to them and pressed his warm, furry body against the child, creating a living blanket of heat. "What is he doing?" Amanda asked, torn between fear of the wild animal and the undeniable warmth he was providing. "He's trying to warm Tyler," Noah explained, amazed but not entirely surprised by Bruno's behavior. Bears have an incredible ability to generate and retain body heat, even in extreme conditions. It's how they survive winter. Parker removed his heavy ranger coat and added it over the boy and bear. "He's right. Best thing for the child right now is warmth. This bear seems to understand that better than we do." Olivia knelt beside them, adjusting Lily in her carrier to check the Richardson boy. His small face was frighteningly pale, his lips tinged blue, but as Bruno's warmth began to seep into him, a touch of color slowly returned to his cheeks. "We can't stay here," Noah said, checking his watch. "The fire is still coming. We need to keep moving down the mountain." Parker nodded, turning to Amanda. "Can you walk? We're heading down the logging trail to the highway." "I think so," she said, stronger now that help had arrived. "But Tyler—" As if in answer to her concern, Bruno shifted position, carefully maneuvering the still unconscious boy onto his back. The bear cub looked at Noah, then at the door, his intention unmistakable. "He wants to carry Tyler," Noah said, still amazed despite everything he'd witnessed from Bruno over the past months. "He knows the boy needs constant warmth." Amanda looked uncertain, her maternal instinct battling with the evidence of the bear's gentle behavior. Is it safe?" "I've never seen anything like it," Parker admitted. "But right now, that bear might be your son's best chance. We can arrange the boy securely, and we'll all be right here." With careful movements, they positioned Tyler on Bruno's back, using Parker's scarf to create a makeshift harness that would keep the boy secure without restricting the bear's movement. Tyler stirred slightly during the process, but didn't fully wake, which worried all the adults. "Time to move," Parker said, checking outside where the orange glow of the approaching fire had grown brighter. "The trail's this way." They left the shed and made their way back to the logging trail. Now a group of 6, 4 adults, a baby, a small boy, and a bear cub performing a role none of them could have imagined. The storm continued to rage around them, But Bruno moved with confidence, his steps careful and deliberate as he carried his precious cargo. Amanda stayed close to Bruno and her son, occasionally reaching out to touch Tyler's hand or face, reassuring herself that he was still warm. "I don't understand," she said to Noah as they navigated the treacherous path. "How is this possible? Bears are wild animals, predators." "Bruno is different," Noah explained, helping her over a fallen log. "We found him orphaned 3 months ago. Since then, he's been living with us, observing human behavior, learning from us. We've been documenting his development for my research." "He seems to genuinely care about the boy," she observed, watching as Bruno paused to adjust his position, ensuring Tyler remained secure and warm. "He does," Olivia confirmed, shifting Lily in her carrier. "He's the same way with our daughter. It's like he sees himself as her protector." They continued down the logging trail, the going painfully slow due to the deep snow and icy conditions. Every few minutes, Parker would check their position using his compass, ensuring they were still heading toward the highway. The fire behind them cast an eerie orange glow over the snow-covered landscape, a constant reminder of the danger pursuing them. After nearly an hour of treacherous descent, they reached a steep section where the old logging road had partially collapsed, creating a sheer drop of about 15 feet. "This is bad," Parker said, shining his light down the embankment. "We'll have to find another way around." "There is no other way," Noah replied, surveying their options. "The fire's cutting off any route back, and the forest on either side is too dense to navigate in this storm." "We have rope," Olivia reminded them, pulling it from Noah's backpack. "We can use it to lower ourselves down one at a time." Parker nodded, taking the rope. "I'll go first, then help the rest of you down." He secured one end to a sturdy tree and began his careful descent over the edge. Bruno watched the process with apparent concern, shifting his weight as if anxious about the situation. Tyler, still on the bear's back, had begun to show signs of waking, his small hands now clutching Bruno's fur. "How are we going to get Bruno and Tyler down?" Amanda asked, voicing the question they were all thinking. Before anyone could answer, a terrifying crack echoed through the forest. A massive tree, weakened by the fire and toppled by the wind, came crashing down directly in their path. Sparks and burning debris showered around them as the fiery trunk blocked the narrow trail completely. "The fire's closer than we thought," Parker shouted from below. "You need to get down here now." Noah quickly helped Olivia to the edge, securing the rope around her and Lily together. "Careful," he urged, helping them begin their descent. As they were halfway down, another horrifying sound split the night, the groan of stressed earth and roots giving way. The fire had destabilized the slope above them, and now a section was collapsing, starting a small avalanche of snow, earth, and burning debris. "Look out!" Noah shouted, pushing Amanda toward the edge where Parker waited to help her down. The avalanche struck the trail just feet from where they stood, sending a wave of snow and debris cascading over the edge. Noah lost his footing, slipping toward the newly formed gap in the trail. He clawed desperately at the snow, trying to stop his slide toward the now 30-foot drop created by the collapsed section. "Noah!" Olivia screamed from below, watching in horror as her husband slid toward the edge. In that moment of pure crisis, Bruno acted with astonishing decision. Still carrying Tyler, he lunged forward, grabbing the back of Noah's coat in his powerful jaws. The bear's claws dug into the frozen ground, creating anchors that stopped Noah's slide mere inches from the drop. For a breathless moment, no one moved. Noah, half suspended over the edge, was being held solely by the determined grip of a bear cub who somehow understood exactly what was at stake. With careful strength, Bruno pulled backward, dragging Noah to safety away from the crumbling edge. "My God," Parker whispered, watching from below. The danger wasn't over. The fire had now reached the trees directly behind them, and the heat was becoming unbearable. The section of trail they stood on was rapidly becoming unstable. "We need to get down now," Amanda cried, looking frantically between her son, still secured to Bruno's back but now stirring more actively, and the approaching flames. Noah, shaken but functional, looked at Bruno. "We need a way down," he told the bear, pointing to the drop. It seemed absurd to explain the situation to an animal, but every instinct told him Bruno understood. The bear surveyed the drop, then the surrounding area, his intelligent eyes assessing in a way that seemed impossible for his species. Then, with deliberate movements, he approached a large, snow-covered mound near the edge, began digging furiously with his front paws, uncovering what appeared to be an old maintenance ladder attached to the hillside, a remnant of the logging operation, hidden under years of accumulated debris and snow. "How did he—" Amanda began, but Noah was already clearing the remaining snow from the rungs. "It doesn't matter, this is our way down," he said, testing the first rung. The ladder was rusty but seemed sturdy enough. "Amanda, you go first." She nodded, quickly making her way down to where Parker, Olivia, and Lily waited. Noah turned to Bruno, facing a new dilemma. Bruno can't climb down a ladder, especially not with Tyler. The bear seemed to understand the problem. He carefully lowered himself to the ground, allowing Noah to untie Tyler from his back. The boy was awake now, groggy and confused, but alive thanks to Bruno's warmth. "Hey there, buddy," Noah said gently, checking the child's condition. "We're going to get you down to your mom, okay?" Tyler nodded weakly, his eyes widening as he fully registered the bear beside him. But instead of fear, his reaction was one of wonder. "Bear," he whispered, reaching out a small hand to touch Bruno's fur. "That's Bruno," Noah explained, securing the rope around Tyler's small body. "He's been keeping you warm. He's a very special bear." With Parker and Amanda helping from below, Noah carefully lowered Tyler down to his mother's waiting arms. The reunion was brief but emotional, Amanda clutching her son close, tears freezing on her cheeks in the bitter cold. Now only Noah and Bruno remained on the rapidly deteriorating ledge. The fire had reached the trees directly behind them, sending waves of intense heat that melted the snow and further destabilized the ground. "Noah, hurry!" Olivia called from below. He looked at Bruno, a terrible realization dawning. The ladder wouldn't support the bear's weight, and the rope they had wasn't strong enough to lower him safely from this new height. "What about Bruno?" he shouted down, his voice breaking. Parker's response was grim but realistic. "Bears are incredible climbers and jumpers. He might find his own way down once you're safe." Noah knew it was a slim hope at best. The drop was now well over 30 feet due to the continued collapse of the trail, with jagged rocks below. Even a fully grown bear might not survive such a fall, let alone a cub. "I can't leave him," Noah said, looking into Bruno's intelligent eyes. After everything the bear had done, saving Tyler, warming him, finding the victims in the first place, and now saving Noah himself from falling, leaving him felt like the worst kind of betrayal. Bruno made a soft huffing sound and nudged Noah firmly toward the ladder, his meaning clear. "Go." "Bruno, no," Noah whispered, his voice choked with emotion. But the bear nudged him again, more insistently. The ledge gave another ominous crack. With a heart that felt like lead, Noah began his descent down the ladder, each step taking him further from the remarkable creature that had become family. Halfway down, he heard a terrible sound. The final collapse of the ledge where Bruno stood. He looked up in horror to see the bear disappearing over the edge, falling not toward them, but toward the other side of the now widened gap, into a darkness that swallowed him completely. "Bruno!" The anguished cry tore from Noah's throat, echoing through the storm-ravaged forest. When he reached the bottom, Olivia was there, tears streaming down her face. She had seen it too. "He saved us," she whispered. "He saved all of us." There was no time for grief. The fire was spreading rapidly around them, cutting off potential escape routes. Parker took command, ushering them down the remaining section of trail as quickly as safety allowed. Tyler, now fully awake but weak, was carried by Noah while Amanda helped support a devastated Olivia, who clutched Lily tightly against her chest. They moved in grim silence, each step taking them closer to potential safety, but further from where Bruno had fallen. The only sounds were the howling wind, the distant roar of the fire, and the occasional sob that escaped despite their best efforts at control. After what seemed like an eternity of treacherous descent, the trees began to thin, and a faint ribbon of asphalt became visible through the swirling snow, the highway. They had made it down the mountain. "Look," Parker pointed to a set of headlights approaching slowly along the snow-covered road. "Highway patrol. They must be checking for stranded motorists." He immediately used his flashlight to signal, waving it in practiced patterns that would be recognized by emergency services. The vehicle slowed, then turned toward them, high beams illuminating their battered, exhausted group. 2 officers emerged, quickly assessing the situation and ushering them into the heated SUV. Inside, wrapped in emergency blankets, the reality of their ordeal and their loss began to sink in. "The bear," Noah said hollowly, looking back at the burning mountainside they had escaped. "He didn't make it." The officers exchanged confused glances, clearly wondering if hypothermia was causing delusions. But Amanda spoke up, her voice firm despite her exhaustion. "That bear saved my son's life," she said. "He saved all our lives. He found us in that shed. He kept Tyler warm. He found a way down when we were trapped." Parker, to Noah's surprise, nodded in confirmation. "I've been a ranger for 23 years, he told the officers. "I've never seen anything like what that bear did tonight. Never. And I don't expect I ever will again." The highway patrol officers still looked skeptical but focused on their immediate responsibilities, getting the survivors to medical attention. They radioed ahead to the nearest hospital, reporting their condition and estimated arrival time. As they pulled away from the mountain, Noah stared out the window at the burning forest, the flames now fully visible as they consumed the place that had been their home. Somewhere in that inferno was Bruno, the remarkable creature who had changed their understanding of what was possible, who had given his life so that they might escape. The weight of that sacrifice crushed Noah's heart. Bruno had been more than a research subject, more than a pet. He had been family. And now he was gone. Little did Noah know that fate had one more extraordinary twist in store, one that would once again challenge everything they thought they knew about the remarkable bear cub who thought he was human.